Good morning. Before we get started, please like and subscribe. Please share my channel. Please comment whether you agree with me or not. I love having you here. Thanks for being here, and thank you for your comments. I appreciate that because I like having conversations about these things. So it's nice to have other people who are sharing in these discoveries. So with that said, I'm just going to start right up with today's subject, because I definitely know what I want to talk about this morning. Give me 1 second. So yes, I have been, hold on 1 second. Give me 1 second here. Thank you so much for yesterday. You helped me a lot. Thank you. All right. People beeping at me because I'm handing somebody something. So anyway, what I wanted to talk about this morning is something that I watched on a YouTube video last night, and I finished it up this morning. It was so interesting. It was a physicist who had had a spiritual experience, and he was talking about quantum panpsychism, and that is, there's a whole hour-long video that goes along with what quantum panpsychism is, but basically, in the very, very simplest of terms, what it means is the union between science and spirituality. And I found this video extremely interesting because this is what my whole channel is about. My whole channel is about the science of God and what I'm discovering to be what God consists of, and who God is, and what God is, and who we are. Because when we as human beings start to ask the question, who am I? It can really lead us down a trail of a lot of different discoveries. And you know, all of us are different. And I'm going to say again, I say this on almost all of my videos, we don't all have to think alike. We don't all have to be at the same leg of the journey. We don't all have to be discovering the same things at the same times. I know there was a time 30 years ago when I first became a Christian, if anybody would have been talking about these things, I would have said, you're New Age, that's evil, that doesn't belong in the Bible doesn't say that, because it was 30 years ago, and I was in a particular point in my discovery at that time of spirituality that brought me to understandings that I had at the time. Now, I'm not saying that through the years I have gained more and more and more wisdom and more understanding, and that makes me better than anybody else. That's not what I'm saying at all. I don't consider myself more wise or better or more knowledgeable, and I'm not trying to say I discovered all these answers and you don't have them. You know, if you don't think what I think, and if you haven't discovered what I've discovered, then you just don't know. I want everyone on my channel to know that that is not at all what I'm saying. There are some channels that speak out and say this is what I found and this is the truth and you should believe this. But that's not what I say on my channel. What I say on my channel is we are all on a journey here, and wherever you are and whatever you believe is to be respected and given merit. Because if whatever you believe is what you believe, then that's where you are, and that's where we all are where we are. And I don't think it's ever right for anyone to say where you are is wrong. What you believe is wrong or where you are is wrong. I don't think that's ever, for me anyway, again, for me, it's not a good idea to criticize other people's journeys and other people's discoveries. But in my discovery in this last year that I've been looking into, I've asked the question, who am I? Who is God? I wanted to know the science of God, and I looked into quantum science. And quantum theory, this physicist was different than most of the other physicists, because all the other physicists would say, you know, we get to a certain point of knowing what matter is, knowing what particle, you know, we know somewhat what particle is, and then it kind of drops off where it links that to spirituality because we just don't know. We don't have that link between science and spirituality. But this physicist, he had an experience where, I won't go into his whole story, but let's just say he had an experience. He was very scientific, and he had a spiritual experience. And he started to ask those questions. Who am I? What am I here for? What is this? What is this spiritual? What is all this love coming out of me? What is this? And he could feel it. He knew it. It wasn't just a quiet sense of something out there. It was in him that he felt, and he questioned it. So he applied quantum science to what he had felt. And I really, really like the words quantum panpsychism, because that's really what I discovered last year, that science and God are not at war with each other. Science and God are one. And some people, who follow the Bible say, and I used to say this all the time, God created science, God created medicine, God created everything, God created us. So he talks a lot about that, and he talks about mathematics, which math is really what, we can equate everything that we see, everything that we are, everything that around us to mathematical equations. All of it is math, and scientists like to say that we created math, and so they're trying to figure out how math can discover what we see. But what this physicist is saying is that no, we didn't create math, or math didn't create the universe. The universe created math, which goes inside with God created everything. So I think I might have had that backwards, so sorry. I don't mean to confuse you, but I think that scientists try to figure out how math created the universe, and what this scientist is saying is that no, the universe created math. And I love that. I absolutely love that, because it's what I believed all along, that God creates everything. God created math. God created science. And I call the entity of source energy, or of source intelligence, God. A lot of people call that entity God. And I'm not going to ever criticize anyone for calling that God. I won't criticize anyone for calling that something different. Whatever anybody wants to call that intelligent consciousness, that's what it is. God is intelligent consciousness that always existed. Now, we don't know where that came from, how it began, how it started to exist. But in the Bible, God is referred to as He, and that personifies Him. And it gives people the impression that God is a He, like a person. And when it says God created us in His image, we think that means that He has a body and hair and eyelashes and, and a beard. And we think that what we look like must be what He looks like. So we personify things. And human beings have a tendency to personify everything. People do it with animals. They'll put them in clothes, and they think that dogs love to be in clothes. And I'm not going to criticize anybody that puts clothing on their pets and thinks it's cute, or dresses them up for Halloween. But the animals were not designed to wear clothing, and we tend to personify animals, and we think that they think like we do. Humans our ego likes to think that everything and everybody thinks like we do, and behaves like we do for some reason. And we did it to God. We did the same thing to God. We put clothes on Him and white hair and a beard, and we call Him a person, and we think that He thinks like we do. That's the human ego. That's our individuality. That's our ego thinking that everything, including God, should be like me. But it's the other way around. God is not like us. We are like Him. And He is not what we think He is. And again, you can follow your own journey and believe what you want to believe. I'm never going to criticize anyone. If you don't disagree with me, that's fine. You can see things the way I see them, or you can see things differently. That's absolutely fine. I don't call anybody evil for seeing things differently. But God, in what I've discovered, is a collective consciousness that is one. And when I say what I've discovered, if you go all the way back to my videos, 200 videos ago, where I was first talking about this and first getting into learning, I do talk about the wave and the particle and all the, how they discovered the particle. The wave goes like this, and the particle is kind of what happens at the top. And they at first thought that a particle, they were really mind-boggled about what a particle is. A particle is what makes up matter, is what makes up the things that we see, the physical things. And they couldn't understand exactly what a particle is and why it moves around so much. It would come and go. The waves would be going like this, and the particles would be going boop, 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 and all over the place, and they would come and go. And they would appear here and then disappear, and appear here and disappear. And they couldn't understand, they couldn't get put their thumb on a particle. But now, science is discovering that, wait a minute, a particle isn't solid. A particle is like a beam of light. It's a particle, and this is what this physicist said, and I love this too. He said, a particle is not a dot. A particle is an energy. So we have wave forming little blips of what in human terms, the only way that we can, express it is light, little blips. When a wave goes up, it goes up and down and up and down. And when it goes up and a particle is formed, that particle is not a solid thing. If you look at that particle, it's going to be like, it'll look like, it's almost like when we look at, say that I'm looking at a cloud right now. I can see clouds in the sky, and those clouds, I could paint them. They look like big white poofy things, like cotton balls. I could say those clouds are cotton balls, and if I went into the sky and pulled one of those down, I'd be able to touch it and hold it in my hand, because it looks just like a cotton ball. And so that's what I think it is. We have big cotton balls in the sky, and I'm going to go up and get one of them. When I fly in an airplane next time, I'm going to grab one of those cotton balls out of the sky and hold it in my hand. Okay, so we all know that a cloud can't be grabbed. If I fly in an airplane and go up in the sky, the closer I get to those clouds, the more I'm going to start to see them spread out and widen. I'm going to go and I'm going to say, oh, this isn't a solid. This is like vapor. This thing is, the airplane is like flying right through this thing. It's not like I can't touch it. If I try to touch it, my hand will go right through it like a ghost. It's not solid. It looks solid from here because I'm looking at it really far away. But in reality, the closer we get to it, the more we get into it and really look at it up close, the cloud is just, when you're flying through a cloud, you can see that all that vapor is just kind of flying by you as the plane goes through it, and you're not able to grab onto it. And so that's what a particle, as far as this physicist is concerned, that's what a particle is. It's something that we think looks like a solid, but it's really more, it's not solid. It's like a light beam, like a quick blip of light. And those blips of light are processed. Now he equates this is where it gets really interesting. He equates this to quantum processors or quantum computers. And they're talking about, they're starting to get into, rather than using bits in a computer, they're using qubits, which are quantum bits, which can measure all the possibilities. Instead of measuring what is, quantum bits measure all the possibilities that could be, which, wrap your head around that. So quantum computers, that's what, a lot of the scientists and a lot of the engineers are working on quantum computers right now. In fact, those who are trying to win the AI race are trying to win the AI race by being the first one to develop a quantum computer. There are so many things because they know that that's important to consciousness, and they know that they can't develop what they want to develop without finding some level of, or I shouldn't say develop consciousness, but the closest they can get to humanoid or human consciousness. So they're in a race to try to find this out scientifically, and they're in a race. I just saw 11/11. They're in a race to be able to develop quantum computers. So qubits are what are used in those computers to equate all the possibilities. And why would we want to equate all the possibilities if there was only one possibility? So somebody out there in the scientific world knows that there's more than one possibility. If I am pulling up to a white car right now, I just pulled up behind a white Passat, and I parked behind a white Passat. Now that car could have been a black Corolla. That's the one sitting beside me over here. That white Passat that I'm looking at right here could have been a black Corolla instead, but it's a white Passat. Now this is my elementary kindergarten version of how this all works. But the fact of the matter is that car right there could have been anything. It could have been a truck. It could have been a van. There could have been no car there. There could have been a car parked sideways. There could have been so many different endless possibilities for what I could have parked behind, but I parked behind a white Passat and I'm looking at it. The knowledge or the information, those light blips are blips of information, and they're processed through my brain, which is my computer, my own personal processor. And my eyes are my nervous system is now, we all know that we have electromagnetic, bodies have electromagnetic energy. And whenever we talk about our brains, and, I can feel this in my leg because my brain is processing it. What is happening? And we say our neurons are firing away, or our neurological system is firing away. Well, it's firing away because it's making little sparks. And those sparks are what particle are. So when my nervous system fires away and processes through my brain and comes out in the form of what my eyes, my ears, and my sense of touch, my 5 senses can process, can give me back, that is giving me feedback. So all those blips are processing. My senses are taking in what is being processed, and it's equating it to information that I can use and then feeding it back to me. The physicist was talking about, the fact that particle that does the same thing. The whole universe, everything we look at is the same. It's processed through our brains and we see with our senses, but it doesn't have to be processed in one particular way. It's processed however the thought waves come in, and that's what is processed. So that also includes our subconscious. We can create things by our knowledge of what we know we are, what we know that where we are, who we are, what we're doing in life, what life looks like to us. So these things, all these possibilities fall into one particular scenario as our thoughts are processed. Hope you can wrap your mind around all that, because I just condensed pretty much what he said in an entire hour and 20 minutes into one 18-minute video. But I mean, as we walk through this world, there are so many possibilities, so many things that can happen. And our senses, it's really, really interesting to understand how the thought wave goes into our processor and comes out in what we see. And that it's our senses, it's our eyes that tell me this is a white Passat. It's my ears that hear the birds chirping outside. It's my sense of touch that tells me that if I smack my leg, it's going to hurt. Those are my senses, and those senses are part of my processor or my brain. So when he talks about the quantum realities of spirituality, that's really what he's doing, is he's breaking down what we know as physical and sharing with us that what we know as physical is actually light. They're just light blips. And the reason that those blips come and go in the waves is because they're not necessarily anything put together until we look at one of them. And in the scientific world, they say until it's observed, and then it kind of falls into line. It's almost like those things are just beeping around all over the place. And then we look at one and it goes, oh. I kind of equate that to children in a classroom. Children are like running around, jumping on their desk, throwing things, flying paper airplanes, sticking gum on the chair, just being rowdy. And then the teacher opens a door and looks at them, and they're all sitting in their seats like, And then she sees the classroom in an orderly manner because they became orderly. The teacher walked in, he or she, the teacher opens the door, looks at all this chaos, and the kids suddenly get in line. And now order is created. The teacher looked at the children and suddenly they fell into line. And that is, again, the kindergarten elementary version of what happens with particles. All these lights that are created by waves are just going all over the place. And then we look at one and observe it. And I'm, again, simplified. We're not looking at one particle. We look at something and observe, and all those particles, all those light things form through our brains, process order. And then life becomes orderly. We look around and we see things in order. Now, one of the things I wanted to share, last thing I want to share, is that this physicist talked about, a lot of people call these bodies avatars. And the physicist talked about, the interviewer was asking the physicist, do you think that we are avatars? And he said, well, I kind of liken them to a drone. Say that you're flying a drone over a land. I'm flying a drone over Afghanistan. And the drone that I'm flying, I don't have my hands, I'm flying the drone. The drone is pretty autonomous, so it knows pretty much what to do. I give it commands, it knows what it needs to do. All I have to do is give it the signal for it to make a move, turn left, turn right, or do whatever it is that I need it to do. And that drone, as it's flying, is taking pictures of the whole area, and I can see visuals. What I'm doing is I'm sitting in an office somewhere in my town, watching the landscape and watching the land. As the drone's flying through, I'm watching this like I'm there. When I have goggles on and I'm watching my drone flying over Afghanistan, I'm in that world. That's the world that I see. I see the desert, and I see the mountains, and I see the people and the towns and the cities. I see these things because the drone sees them. I'm processing, my vision is what I'm seeing is what the drone is sending me. The drone is sending me signals. Well, say that somebody shoots the drone down and it's gone, and all of a sudden I can't see what the drone's seeing anymore. I take the goggles off. Did the drone die? Well, it got shot down. It's not working anymore. The drone is no more. Did I die? No. I just took the goggles off. Now I'm looking around in an office space, and I've got my colleagues here, and I've got my people and my computer in front of me. Now, instead of living in the land of Afghanistan where the drone was sending me signals, now I'm living I'm in the office. I took the goggles off. The drone's gone. I live in the office. He equated that to human death, that our bodies are like the drones that are providing images that tell us, oh, you're in this land. This is where you are. You're in this land. And we see, like we're seeing through these goggles, like, oh, this is the land I'm in. Then when the body goes, that doesn't kill us. The body's done showing us that land. But then we're not in that land anymore. Now we look around and we're like, oh, I'm back in the office, or I'm back in where I was. And where we are, now we don't know specifically where we go or where we are, but we don't die. We, as the essence of the consciousness that we are, we don't die. We go back to where we were. We're looking at imaging, all these images of a life. And then when that life is done showing us images, or when our bodies, which would be equated to the drone, is done showing us all these images, then we go back to the images of where we were before. So I found that really interesting. Again, I'm going to say that all the scientific explanation and all the things that are considered new agey and all the things that are considered outside of the Bible, really in reality, if you read the Bible, and especially if you read what Jesus taught, you will know that Jesus taught these things. These things do not war with each other. One is not good and one is not evil. They are together. So quantum panpsychism is basically taking science and explaining in scientific terms what Jesus came to show us and teach us. Jesus taught us these things. He just didn't sit down with a bunch of equations and teach them in the form of a professor. He taught them in the form of a spiritually enlightened person who was walking as an enlightened, he was telling us spiritual things, but they definitely do match up with the science that's being discovered. And more science is starting to uncover the things that spirituality, basically what can be said is that science is proving that these spiritual things are truth. And more people are starting to discover. Now, there are still holes. Please don't think that I think I know everything, and please don't think that I think this particular physicist knows everything, but they're getting so close to having knowledge of spirituality. It's just interesting. There are still holes. There are still questions. In fact, there will always be questions. There are things they don't know, like where exactly do we go? Do we get, Jesus said we get a new body. So a lot of people who come out of their body when they pass away, like say that they pass away on the operating table and they hover over and they see their body and they go somewhere else and see other people. Are they just a cloud, or what form are they in? Jesus says we get a new body. So, you know, those are things that we don't know. We don't know exactly where we go and what we are and what happens after this scenario is over, this experience is done. We don't know. There are a lot of answers we don't have, but exploring them is just, for me, it's a lot of fun to explore. I like to dive into these things and ask the questions, and I like the answers that I see. I just find it really interesting. So anyway, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, and I hate that term. I don't know why I just said it, but I'm not going to eliminate it from the whole video just because I said that. I don't like that expression. That's not, anyway, I love animals and I hate that expression. That's just something that I heard, that I learned in childhood somewhere way back there. And I know that I'm going on and that Anyway, that's all I have to say for today. I'm going to get into the office now. I hope you're all having a great day. And if you process this, or if if it's something that interests you, let me know. I'd love to have a conversation about it. If it's something, if you want to add to it, or, if you have something else that you understand, that you've seen or read or heard that you understand, let me know. And I guess that's it. I will see you next time.